Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. I'm really excited today because I want to go over how to take off a final drive off of a SLV90, and I need to get the rear seal repaired. I'm going to send this out to somebody that will fix that piece. But today I want to show you guys how you can take this off yourself and kind of walk you through what I did with my buddy to take this apart and to kind of give you some guidance on how to do this. And it's really not that difficult. It'll save you a lot of money if you can do this yourself. And it's really not that complicated, but you have to have the right tools and know what you're getting into. And but you know, within 3 or 4 hours, you can easily rip this final drive off and then get it sent out somewhere to get it fixed and then put it back on. It's really not that difficult. So stay tuned, and we're going to kind of cover how to take off a final drive off a SLV90 Kubota. And it probably will apply to a lot of other models out there as well, so stay tuned. So over the years, I heard a lot of horror stories about final drives and having them break down how expensive they are. And I've also seen on Facebook on some of the skid steer channels, specifically the Kubotas, where people show a photograph of their final drive with all this oil leaking underneath here, and they go, "What's the problem? What's wrong?" And as soon as you see oil leaking, I don't even care if it's a few drops, it's the first sign to tell you that you probably got a blown seal in your final drive. And if you do not get this thing dealt with immediately, and you do not keep a real close eye on your oil levels, when you run that final drive dry, you're going to tear up your final drive, and it's going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And it can be easily avoided for, you know, less than $1,000, or actually probably around $1,000 for a new seal, and it'll save you a lot of headaches. But the biggest problem for most people is just getting to the point of taking this thing apart. Now, I found a guy in my area, and I live in northeastern Ohio, down in Youngstown, who works on final drives. That's all he does. He's a genius on final drives. And I just take my stuff to him, he repairs them, and he's a lot cheaper, and he does a better job than most of the dealerships. So I'm very happy with him. And he's been my godsend. I mean, I dropped a final drive off to him on a Saturday night, calls me up on Sunday and tells me to come get it. I mean, can't beat that. So also too, a final drive, just the seal alone is $900, and the cost for me, I think it was around $600 or $700 out the door after he got done with it. And he told me a lot of things about final drives, and I'm just going to pass this information on to you. One thing about a final drive: you need to keep oil change every 250 hours. Keep your eyes on that thing. And don't be afraid to open this up and drain it. Most people don't even touch their final drives, and the oil just sits there and sits there and sits there. Secondly, when they run dry, they will tear up all the gears in there, and it's just going to cost you big dollars. So that's very important to kind of maintain every 250 hours. The average lifespan on a lot of these final drives is about $1,500 hours as far as like the seals go. So it's very, very important for you to keep an eyeball on it. And that's the most important thing. And the other thing in the wintertime is if you're in really cold weather and your tracks are frozen and you try to force these things to move forward, a lot of times you'll rip your seal when you're trying to break free because the tracks are frozen. So it's another issue why you need to pay attention. And most people, you'll notice it really quickly in frozen weather. But if you're always caked in with mud and dirt around here and you can't see that, you know, you may smell it, but you know, if you wind up cleaning it off and you see a lot of oil down there, or any oil whatsoever, stop immediately and check that thing out. And another little issue too is I've actually had, no, mine was leaking, and I still had to use my skid steer, and I wasn't losing that much oil. But what was happening on this unit specifically here is I had a barn that fell, and I had to baja through a lot of wet areas on my property to do a lot of maintenance and tear up that barn. And I wound up checking my final drive oil, and I hit the drain plug, and after it was like 2 weeks prior to that, everything was fine. I hit the drain plug, and all of a sudden it comes out milky, and it was full of water. So once I knew I had water in my final drive, that got me really concerned. So bottom line is, when you have a leak in your final drive, water and other debris will actually still get into your final drive and can wreck your gears. So it's very, very important for you to get this thing fixed immediately. Do not take a risk of breaking down. And that's kind of why I wanted to go over this video, because I find it to be very important. And if you want to save money, you want to learn how to do it a little bit better, this is one of those things that if you stay on top of it, you'll be in good shape. So let's go over how to tear off a final drive. I'm going to show you the ways of taking the tracks off that my buddy showed me. And, you know, this is just one way. I've seen a lot of different ways on YouTube, but this is what way he does it, and he's more of an expert on this stuff than I am. So I'm going to kind of show you what he showed me and what we did today, so you guys understand how we took the tracks off. So before I go into explanation of how we take the track off the skid steer, I want to show you my indicator of why I knew that I had a leak in my final drive. And this is a picture of me looking between the track and behind the sprocket, and I could see that dark spot in the middle, and that's just leaking oil coming out of the seal. And it wasn't a lot, but enough to tell me that I have a problem. So this photograph shows you my final drive oil that should be black in color, and if it comes out looking creamy like this and light color, that's an indicator that you have water in your final drive oil, and you need to get this not only changed, but you probably have a leak, and it's something you need to address. So this is what final drive oil normally looks like, very dark in color. And also get very familiar with the smell of it, because if you do have a leak, you may smell it, and it may be an indicator for you. So I want to take you through my buddy's method of how to take the track off. So the first thing is, what you do is you have to remove this bolt. And this bolt has a zerk fitting on it. And this bolt is found on this plate here with two bolts. You take one bolt out, you loosen the other bolt, and you slide the plate down, and then you wind up using a socket, and you remove this bolt with the zerk fitting. And you go very gently. And what this is made to do is you put grease in here to expand your track and make it tighter. And when you remove this, all the grease comes out and makes it looser. But it won't just decompress on its own. So you got to find a way of decompressing. So what my buddy likes to do is have somebody crawl into the skid steer, and assume this is on flat ground, because right now it's elevated because we're working on the other side. But assume this is the first thing you do. And you wind up taking a board and putting it up against the sprocket, and the driver is told to reverse and go backward. You're going back just a very little bit, and once this board is caught in the sprocket, it's going to apply pressure to the track, because it's obviously extra tension, and it's going to start squirting out and releasing grease. And what's happening is it's decompressing this track and making it loose. And you don't have to go that far. You don't have to have this board go way over here. It just has to go probably a little bit in here, and then you go forward and release again, and that's all you need. And this is an easy and safe way to get all the pressure off the track, and that's what we would do. So I'm going to take you on the other side, and I'm going to show you how we jack this thing up, and so we can remove the track. So I want to quickly walk you through how we took the tracks off. Obviously, after the pressure is released and one of us gets in the skid steer, I wound up taking the bucket, flipping it where the blade is angling down, and I'd actually lifted the whole front end up. And I did that once we had two 6-inch blocks underneath the back end here, so it could kind of get the pressure off, so we can kind of slide the track off. Then we wound up taking 3 6-inch blocks, shoved them right here in the front end, and that kept everything at rest. So then I came down, and everything is just sitting off the ground, and allowed us to take my backhoe, using a backhoe back end bucket, and with the strap, and kind of run it through the track, and actually feed it off the front end, and then kind of work our way back and fed it off the back end. And so everything is now sitting here. You got to be real gentle with it, and since all the pressure is released, this is very heavy, so it allows you the ability to kind of like manipulate it with the backhoe. That's what we did, and it took us about 45 minutes give or take, from start to finish to do this. And when we put it back on, we're going to use the backhoe again to also get it back on the same way we took it off. And that's relatively how we took off the tracks. And there's a lot of different YouTube videos and people explaining how to do that. This is just the method my buddy likes to do, and I just kind of go with the flow, and it works for us, and I can't argue. And when it comes down to taking off tracks, I let him just tell me what to do, and we do it. So that's the first end. Secondly, I wanted to point out too is don't ever take your tracks off and try to even undergo this operation without power washing this whole machine and getting all the mud off before you even start. Because if you don't, you're going to find out you're still going to be cleaning off mud, and you really want to have a clean environment before you get in here, because you're going to get into hydraulic lines and stuff like that, and you cannot work with all the caked in mud. So get it off before you even start this, and you'll be way better shape. So that's really my best advice, just to get started. And now let's kind of go over how to disassemble this from this standpoint. So this is where it all kind of gets pretty simple. There's really not much hardware or bolts you need to take off, and to remove this is relatively just more of a cumbersome issue, because you're going to find a lot of stubborn bolts. So this sprocket is the first thing we're going to take off, and they have a bunch of bolts that roll around here, and they are on really tight. And a half-inch Milwaukee will not even budge them. So you need, if you're going to use a gun, you know, make sure you got a 3/4 inch or something super strong, because these bolts do not break very simple. Or you're going to have a breaker bar, and you can break them that way. But again, they're on very tight. And if you get them started, you'll be okay. So the first thing you want to do is remove the sprocket. Once the sprocket gets, the bolts come out, you're going to have a hard time for this to even come out. So again, we were pounding on it, we're using a lot of penetrating oil, and we finally break it free. So once it comes off, it's relatively simple. So this is the sprocket, and this is the first thing off. Once that's off, back here is a plate, and this gets you to your hydraulic lines that are actually connected to the final drive. There's only 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Take the 2 bolts off on both sides, pull the plate, and what you're going to find in here is nothing but caked in mud. And once this plate comes off, here, this gives you access to the internal workings of your final drive. And I'll give you a close-up here right now. So once you have access to this area, dig in here with your hand, remove as much debris as possible, because this is all going to be caked with mud. And you want to kind of unveil all the lines and have clear sight of them. And you can do a more thorough job as you get down deeper once you take the final drive off. But the first thing you need to do is have access to those lines. Second thing, there's 10 bolts that go in a half moon pattern that actually hold the final drive on, and you need to remove as many of those as you can. I suggest you leave the top 2 on each corner still in here, and then try to get the ones that wrap all around and underneath the sprocket out first. But you're going to find that it is better to take these bolts off completely first, and loosen the last 2 before you undo the lines, because what you're going to find out is these little sprocket pieces are kind of in the way of your bolts. And what I suggest you do is have your friend get in the cab, and the bolts that you can't do, have them, you know, move the machine so that the sprocket and the final drive moves, so that when you get to the right spot where you have access, you zap those off. But like I said, these first 2 on each side, keep them, because you don't, this thing's heavy, and once these come off, the whole final drive will fall, and you want to leave them until the end. Then what you'll do is you'll wrap a strap on around this unit, take the last 2 bolts out, and lift it out once all the lines are off. And then basically you have this unit off the machine. And it's relatively that simple. There's not much to it. There's more of it is just going through the process of getting access to your final drive. So we took the final drive off, but again, I want to recap what we needed to do. So there's a plate that actually sits right here. It's held in by 2 17mm bolts. Take this off, and what you're going to have is now a bigger access hole to your lines that are connected to the final drive. And there's 5 lines that you have to take off the back end of it. And 2 of them are very large. Then there's kind of one that's medium sized, and then there's 2 small ones. And they have to be, make sure you mark them so you know which one goes to which line, so you don't get confused. And we wound up doing that with ours. And also make sure that you keep the caps clean so no dirt gets into your lines as well. And the most important aspect of this is that once you get the lines broke, make sure when you're taking off that final drive, you do keep at least 2 bolts in, and I suggest these 2 right here, keep them on the final drive until you're ready to take it off. Next thing you need to do is make sure you have a cherry picker or a tractor with a loader where you can kind of keep it elevated, and you may want to wrap a strap around the final drive itself to support it, so that when you do zap off the last 2 bolts and you actually have all your lines off, this final drive is kind of held up in the air and suspended so it doesn't just fall on the ground. And that's basically because it's very heavy and it's more of a support. And what we wound up doing is I had a loader, tractor, and we had a come along attached to a strap that was wrapped around the final drive, and we just supported it with tension. And then once we removed it, we then loaded it. I backed up and I put it on a pallet, and I'm going to take it to my guy for repair. But what you can see in here, and I'll give you a close-up, is this is just a big wad of dirt that's still in here at the bottom that we're going to have to pull out and clean out. And, we'll get ready for the next batch. Now, the holes here that are attaching the final drive are, again, like I said, 24 millimeter. And so you want to definitely get the 24 millimeter size. And again, they are on pretty tight, so make sure you use a breaker bar to get them off, and it'll make your life a lot easier. But relatively, that's it to get that final drive off. And it's very, very simple to do. Like I said before, we used the cherry picker, and we also used my loader. I kind of wanted to show you the setup that we used on the loader. I used a quick attach plate with a flat hitch, for just like a pin. And we put an eyeball on top, we used a winch, and then we used a strap. And that's what we wrapped, the strap we wrapped around the final drive, and we were able to do any refinement on our lifts with the winch. And this is our setup. This worked for us. Use what you will. Even if you had a chain and a hoist, that'll work for you just as well. But to have something that you can control slowly makes things a little bit easier. So I want to show you the final drive. Here's the strap that we actually used, and we wrapped it, and you can see the sprocket section here and to the plate that's actually up against the machine. This is where the bolts go. If you wrap a strap around here, it'll definitely secure your final drive. And here are your hoses and your outlets. And again, if you can get some kind of tension on this, and when you remove the last 2 bolts with some kind of impact gun, it'll at least be suspended in the air, and you're going to have control, and it's not going to come crashing onto the ground. And this is the best way we found to handle this, because this unit is very, very heavy. And it'll make your life a little bit easier. So kind of go over the lines themselves and the tools you're going to need. We used a 1 7/16 inch open end to get the 2 big lines and get them broke free. We had one line that needed a 27 millimeter wrench, which is this one, and then you'll have a double line, the small ones, and they're going to take 19 millimeter. And that'll be what you'll need to break the lines free from the back of the final drive. Once the lines are free, remember you got 2 24-inch bolts that you want to remove, and that'll take the whole final drive off. And what you'll find is all that dirt that you were peeling off, you'll have a bunch in the bottom here that you're going to need to dig out and clean out before you put the final drive back in. But other than that, that's pretty much what it takes to get this thing off. So here's kind of an overall of the final drive. This is the front of it. Obviously, the part you'll see off the machine. And here's like the kind of the small sprocket area where the strap is wrapped around. And when you go around here, you'll see the lines where we have them taken off. These are the 2 big lines right here. And you'll have a couple more down here. And that's it. So be real careful of these two here. You don't want to smash them off when you transport it. I'm going to strap it down on a pallet because once I drove this on my pickup truck and the thing rolled around and the thing is really heavy. So it's best to kind of secure it and use machines to move it around. So I just got my final drive back. It's been 2 days since I sent it out. The guy fixed it and made life a little bit easier. And while I was waiting for it, I cleaned out the entire cavity where the final drive actually goes into the hoses. And I cleaned all the dirt out of here, and it's now clean. And so we're ready to put it back on. And I'll give you a quick shot of what it looks like as it's clean. So there's the cavity now that's cleaned out, looking good. And all we have to do is bolt it back on and put on the hoses, and we're good to go. So this is referred to as the seals that were actually replaced. And this rubber gasket goes around the floating seal. And what happens, what I was told yesterday, is that what happens is that little bits of sand and dirt actually start to wear on the metal rim here, and eventually it kind of eats its way down and it kind of gets the seal to leak. So again, this is what needs to be replaced, and just want to kind of show you why you're taking off your final drive and what is causing the leak, and it's these things right here. So again, we're going to put this thing back on. It should be relatively simple, and again, you're going to reverse your order. Lift that up, gently set it in place with the crane or cherry picker, put your 2 bolts in, lock it in, then connect your lines, put as many bolts in as you can, and then slowly start the machine up and turn it so your bolts line up, and again, just secure that final drive onto the machine. After that, put your cover back on to the lines, put your sprocket on, as well as the other dirt cover that goes over the lines, and you're done. And all you have to do then is put on the track. So it's relatively pretty basic. There's not a lot to it, but it's well worth something that you should try to do yourself, I think, and it's really not that bad. Especially going back on it shouldn't take you within an hour or two. You should be done with this. So as you guys can see, we finally got the final drive back on the machine. Everything's tensioned up, be greased and get the spread. Everything's in good shape. But the one thing we have to do last is basically make sure that we're full and have enough fluid of 80-90 weight in the final drive. So I'm going to show you how we set this up, how we check it, and we'll probably have to add a little bit to this, and then we'll be good to go. And then I'll do the other side as far as the final drive and drain it and replenish it with fluid. So with that said, let me show you how to check your final drive. And if you ever have to drain your final drive, this is the same procedure. So whether you're filling it, emptying it, you need to follow this procedure and you'll be good to go. So the first thing you need to know with the final drive is it's going to take, on a Kubota SLV90, you need an 8mm hex. And that's what you're going to need to take off the bolts. And there's actually 3 bolts. There's one here, and one here. And to line it up, there's a line that kind of goes across this machine, and that's kind of like the level line. And you need to have the hole with the 2 plugs on top and the one directly on the bottom. This is your drain plug right here. This one here is your fill plug, and this one here is basically our check, our overflow, to see if we're full or not. So I'm going to take this one out right now, and nothing's coming out of it. So we know that we're low of fluid. So I'm going to take the plug off here, and I loosened these up already a little bit. And so this is where we're going to actually fill it at, on the top. And this, again, the bottom is secured and it's tight, and we're not even going to think about taking this off. Now, some people wind up putting Teflon on here. You can if you want, it's up to you. I don't really do it if I don't need to, so I'm not going to put anything on it. Just make sure you snug it up, and definitely you don't want to strip these because, like I say, they're hex shaped, and if you round these out, you're going to have a hell of a time getting them out. So bottom line is we're going to fill this, and I'm going to show you how to do that here. Okay, so this is 80-90 weight, and I suggest you get one of these smaller bottles. This is basically a 1 quart bottle, and you're probably going to need 1 to 1.5, basically 1.5 quarts, give or take, to actually fill this chamber. But what's nice about these is that you have this cutoff tip. So all you need to do is stick it in here and squeeze it. And I'm going to squeeze it and put as much as I can in here until it comes out of this hole. Once it starts coming out of this hole, I know that we're good to go. And that is kind of what we're looking for. So I'm going to squeeze until I have fluid, and fluid's coming out right now. So that tells me we have enough, and I'm just going to cap this off right now. And that tells me that we're good to go. And once that's in, I'm just going to tighten it up as quick as I can, and then we'll be set. So that one's done, and then we'll just put this other cap on and we're finished. So we know right now that we're good to go, and for about 250 hours, and then we'll check it again around 250 to make sure we have ample fluid and we don't have any problems. And always keep your eye on your final drive, whether you're looking at the back or looking down here, and if you ever see oil down there, the odds are pretty good that your seal's blown. You're going to have to deal with that. But that's it. That's all you need to do to maintain your final drive. And like I say, if you're going to drain it, I would take out all 3 plugs. But remember, the bottom plug is your emptying plug. And if it comes out with water in it or it's milky, you definitely want to make sure that you change it on a regular basis. And that's a real quick sign to let you know that you have a leak. And if it comes out really black and real strong smelling, it's probably an indication that you haven't changed it in a long time. So keep it clean and you'll be in good shape. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video on how to take off a final drive off a Kubota SLV90 skid steer. You know, this project isn't that difficult. Most everybody can do it. And hopefully I covered pretty much everything you need to know. And if you ever have any problems, you know, with the lines, you know, the only other thing that I had a little issue was one of the lines was pretty corroded, and I didn't want to really force it. It was the medium-sized line, so I took an air hammer right at the joint where it's actually threaded on, and I kind of popped on it a little bit with the air hammer, and it loosened it up because of the corrosion, and it came right apart. So be gentle with your lines. Don't break anything, because obviously it's going to cause you a lot of grief. But you know, there is a lot of dirt and air and moisture when you take this apart, and you'll see what I'm talking about once you dig in there. But you know, other than that, it should go on and off pretty simply. You know, you're going to find a lot more stubborn bolts when you start, and putting everything back together is going to go a lot quicker than it is to take things apart on this. But once you get a handle of it, I think anybody's going to have no problem with this. This is a good skill to have. You're going to have to do it on both sides, because normally when one wears out, you're going to deal with the other. And it'll save you a little bit of money by doing it yourself, plus you have a better understanding of your machine. You know, definitely, in my opinion, send out that seal to be repaired on the final drive, let somebody else do it. And it doesn't matter how small the leak you have. If you have a leak, get it addressed, because, you know, unlike an excavator that moves to a spot and you can move around, these machines are designed to move constantly, and you're just going to make a bigger mess. And if moisture actually gets in that seal and thins out your oil, you can destroy your final drive. So again, maintenance is important. Check these things every 250 hours and you'll be good. And this is all I can basically tell you. It's relatively simple, and it doesn't go through much oil. So with that said, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck, and hopefully you gained something from the video. Talk to you guys soon.